looking at where Marner might be getting on a runway out of to next, you don't see the Maple Leaf logo up there. So him returning, I understand that maybe there was a small glimpse that's not happening. They can't afford to spend the money on Marner. And there you look at the favorites: Chicago at plus 300, Philly at plus 400, Pittsburgh at plus 500, the Mammoth. That's the first time we're seeing their logo on this show, plus 600. Hurricanes at plus 800. Then you get into the Red Wings at 10-1, Rangers at 10-1, Ducks at 14-1, Minnesota 18-1, Nashville 20-1. I can't imagine they're going to go out and spend more money after what happened last year, but you never know. Montreal 20-1, which I know that gets you a little excited to potentially have Marner in the mix there. And Colorado at 22-1. Dallas was also listed at 25-1. I just don't see how they make that work, especially with what they just did with Rantanen. So I did not choose to. I kept it to a nice even 12 instead of 13 numbers there. So looking at that on the screen here, let's talk about the Blackhawks first, because, yeah, fine. It makes sense. Like, the big thing in Chicago this year, Bedard was unhappy. He had nobody to work with. Okay, great. Marner on Bedard's wing. Now you maybe have something cooking there. What do you think about that potential fit, or is that just too obvious?
Man, I don't know why. If I'm Mitch Marner, I don't know why I want to go to any of those dog water teams, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'll put the Philadelphia Flyers in that category. I'll put the Pittsburgh Penguins in that category. I most certainly will put the Detroit Red Wings in that category, because if we're talking about plans that haven't worked, right? Why would you go from one plan to another one that doesn't work, right? So here's a couple of things, right? First off, you either target, like, Mitch Marner's got two things he wants to decide. Like, do I want to go get bang, like my buck here, back the Brinks truck up, just put all the money in there and then, head out? Because if so, Chicago and Philadelphia, I'll throw Anaheim in there. These are teams that need to get to the cap floor, let alone, the cap ceiling. They have to get to the floor, right? And at some point, you got to do. I can't take Carolina seriously. I don't think they want to add a player of a player like him to that roster. I think maybe they're missing something, but they've gone out. They've added those high-profile players. A lot of them don't want to be there in Carolina, so I don't know why Mitch would go here. I know the disrespect here with not having Toronto is one thing, and listen, as much as I love to bash Mitch Marner because he's a Leaf, like, he wasn't the problem in Toronto. This is the problem in Toronto remains their blue line. Like, I don't know what pair of glasses some Leaf fans need on, but it's not. I get Mitch Marner's turnover is bad, and I get that he's been in the league a minute now. You know what I mean? So those are mistakes that you should not be making. But giving up 100-point player, and then, like, how are you going to replace that? I know, like, Matthew Nye seems like the new guy, and there's all these types of people writing him blank checks, and you're like, great, we're going to make the same mistake, right, by just writing this kid another fat check, and then if that doesn't work out, so be it. But there's some teams here that we haven't even considered. One being the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know. Again, I don't know how we make money work, but the good thing is I don't have to worry about that. That's somebody else that has to worry about it. We're running out of states that don't have state tax, right? Because he's not going to Nashville. He's definitely not going to, like you said, Dallas, because I don't know how they make any of that money work, right? The problem is I don't know if Mitch Marner is the superstar that you need, right? Like, I feel like he's got to be a complementary piece.
He's got to be Robin. He can't be the Batman.
And it's a lot to then say, like, you can't go to open market and be like, hey man, I want $13-14 million to be a side piece, right? Like that then you're like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm giving you that money, I need you to be a leader, right? I need you to be that guy, right? When stuff is not going well, you take over and you do what you need to do. And, like, he had a decent playoff run. Again, we throw rocks at him for all the reasons needed. He still had what? He had 13 points. It's not terrible. The 2 goals is what it is. The problem is when you needed him the most, that's when it didn't show. But he's not the only body there.
He's not the only person you can apply that to.
He's the only one who's getting the maximum amount of criticism for it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's criticizing John Tavares because nobody's like, he's not there, or he's got to have to take a lot less money to return. I see some people throwing rocks at Willie Nylander. I think he was the best player of that core four. At different moments, he was the guy. And then Austin Matthews was like, he's not going anywhere, right? Like that's Toronto's love child. So, and then like we're way too far out of it anyways. But there's like the conspiracy theories are already deep, where you let Marner walk, you let Tavares walk, you don't spend that money, and then you throw a blank check as if Connor McDavid is going to leave Edmonton so he can join this, this show over here, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
To me, there's two spots, right? Like New York has the appeal is there, and if the Rangers are serious about being a team that competes, because you did sign, Igor to a boatload of money, right? You still have commitments up front. Like he's basically a younger version of Panarin, I guess. If that's what you want, if you don't want to go one way with him, you can go the other way with Marner. But that maybe makes the most sense. If not, I feel like he returns to Toronto. Maybe he'll take 12 and a half, which we can either agree or disagree if that's too much money or whatnot. But the extra year kind of plays into that as well, right? Like that there's getting an extra year means something to players, right? That's why we see them, trade and then to be able to sign those deals. So I won't throw Toronto out of the woods just yet, because like, what are you going to replace them with? This free agent core is not great. And if you let him walk and you don't replace him, and let's say you don't bring back like John Tavares, you have lost 50% of that core four, and it is not getting better next year. You know what I mean? So you're not going to waste a year for the hope of something that does not exist.
So going through the list here again, like you said, I'm taking Philly off the list. I'm taking Pittsburgh off the list. I'm taking Detroit off the list. Taking Anaheim off the list. I'm taking Nashville off the list. So that's 5 teams gone. Montreal, don't get me wrong. I think that would be really intriguing, being coached by another undersized winger. Maybe Martin St. Louis gets another, element out of Marner somehow. I just don't think that's where Montreal necessarily should be spending the money. So, they could do that, but I'm not ready to do it there. Colorado, what? That doesn't sound like they're going to bring back Brock Nelson here. I mean, they need more help down the middle than they do on the wing, although they could use a little bit of help a wing there. I think that would be too rich for them. I don't think they're going to go there. Looking at a team like Minnesota, we haven't talked about them yet. That would be intriguing if they really want to make a move and establish themselves as like, hey, we want to be just as good as Dallas and Winnipeg and whoever Colorado brings in. That would be intriguing. I don't see him going there. Utah, if they wanted to make their first big splash, is like, hey, we're not the Coyotes. We actually want to start adding there. He would be a nice fit there. And Utah certainly got a young group there with Keller, Cooley, Gunther. You bring him in the mix, but again, doesn't really bring any size. Carolina, I think, Stankoven is definitely earning his time there, but they could use a little more of that. But I don't think, again, I don't know if they want to spend that money for him. So now we're eliminating teams. If he wants to go play with Bedard and be his guy, great. Then do that. Then go suffer for the first few years of that contract until it pays off if he has that kind of patience. Running out of teams on the list, like you said, I'm not saying this because I'm a Ranger fan, but there are a lot of ways that makes sense. Okay, Panarin plays on the left side. You have Marner on the other top line on the right side. You brought in JT Miller, so you're still saying, hey, we're trying to get back in the mix next year. We know the Metropolitan Division, Carolina, Washington Devils, Columbus kind of threw their hat in the ring. Let's see if they do it again in year 2 to get over the hump and back in the playoffs. The Rangers could very easily establish themselves as one of the top teams in that division with somebody like Marner there. I mean, Kreider, he's probably gone. They have to fill that hole to a degree. So, yeah, I mean, listen, if you're going to keep Zibanejad as a center and go Trocheck, Miller, Zibanejad, then, yeah, you need to add another presence on the wing, which is something they've been trying to do for a while and haven't been able to do it. I know Gabe Perreault got called up at the end of the season. They didn't really utilize him properly. Lafreniere, it's going to be a put up or shut up season for this guy. So, maybe Marner gets them going and then everybody kind of falls into pegs on the right, if Marner's going to be on your top line, then maybe Lafreniere goes to your second line or Perreault, or you figure it out. But yeah, I think the Rangers make a ton of sense from Marner if they can get it done.
Two teams not on this list that I think at least the conversation can be had depending on how this goes. If he's looking for money, right? Which again, he is a hockey player. So, and nothing wrong with that. He's allowed, go get your bag. You're only a hockey player for a short period of time. The Columbus Blue Jackets. I know nobody wants to go to Columbus. I understand that. But maybe this team, like they were right there, right? And if the step is coming, if they believe that they are closer to like they're there, they're ready to compete kind of thing, they're not bad. They probably need a goalie, right? But their offensive group is kind of fun, kind of young, kind of fun. Dean Evanson got the most out of that group. If you want to go there and be a player that can, really contribute, there's a spot. Columbus has a ton of money as well. So if they want to commit to that, right? And I know some players didn't want to go there in the past, but hey, Johnny Gaudreau went there once, and maybe that opens the door for other players to say, okay, I will come this way. The second team is the San Jose Sharks. If you're looking for money, I mean, listen, as of today, to the good folks over at Cap Wages, the Sharks have $56 million committed to their payroll. 56. They're the only team that's not at the floor today. So and there's only more money that's going to come off the books. You understand? So if you want to throw money at somebody, that's a pretty good way to go. You know what I mean? You can give him a boatload of money, right? You can make an Erik Karlsson move, kind of, which you shouldn't, but let's say they want to, and say, hey man, come here. The beach is nice. You get away from all that media scrutiny, all that garbage. Nobody really cares here. Come out, hang out, Macklin Celebrini, and then you got, Will Smith, Tyler Foley's already there doing kind of thing. You got some guys as well. Like it's fun. The vibes are there. They're probably a few seasons out from being competitive, but so are the Blackhawks. So do I want to go to Chicago and live that life? Or do I want to go to San Jose and live that life instead? Right?
I mean, San Jose has already established good vibes. I mean, listen, Will Smith, if you want to, I'm not going to say an undersized winger, but he could definitely add a little to his frame. So, I mean, you bring a guy like Marner in, like you said, not as, if he thinks, compared to the media scrutiny he has now, he's going to be able to go to Rayleigh's or Safeway and buy his groceries every week, and he might get recognized. Might.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's. So if you're going to take a situation where, like, okay, I'm going to get the bag, go to a team that's on the rise, and yeah, I might not make the playoffs for the next couple of years, but I'm going to have some fun. San Jose is the better option than Chicago for that, because yeah, the Chicago Blackhawks media scrutiny is not the Maple Leafs, but they care about the Blackhawks in Chicago. They're not the Cubs, they're not the Bears, but the Bulls have been a bottom echelon team for a while. Blackhawks are probably right there. Nobody cares about the White Sox and their atrociousness. That's only worse than the only team worse than them is the Rockies. So yeah, I think San Jose is a team not on that list, and I've mentioned that previous times here. We've talked about Marner for a lot of reasons. That would be a good one. You mentioned Tampa as a contending team not on the list. That would make sense. Earlier today on Rip and Riff, Jared Moore said, "How about Vegas?" That was a team. Yes, they got to figure out the cap, but they always find a way.
They always do, right? So.
And that was a team that when they were talking about, trading him, before the season, that was a link there. You look down the wing for them. Like, yeah, they have Eichel, they have Hurdle, they have Carlson, but like Olafson, Howden on the wing. Dorofiev has had a decent year. Riley Smith, like a guy like Marner would be an excellent fit in a team. And all of a sudden now Vegas is very much, okay, you worry about Edmonton being at the top of the division. The Kings are on the rise. Now Vegas has basically reestablished themselves as the top team in the conference. Him and Eichel together. Whew.
Look, if there's two teams that can circumvent the cap, it's Vegas and it's Tampa Bay. And that's not saying it as a mean. Like that's not me being mean to them. That is, listen, they got guys who know how to get around it. If they can make it work, by all means. But I feel like there are other teams that he could go to if he just wants to get paid, which again, he probably does. Then there are lots of places he can go and get paid and, have a good time. If he wants to win, look, Toronto Maple Leafs made it out of the first round. The problem is his play a little bit, but I don't believe many teams are going to shy away from him for that. It's going to be a question of how much money do you want to spend. You're going to have to give him 7 years, right? It's a question of trying to fit it under the cap. A lot of teams know that the cap's going up anyways. So I feel like that's like you're getting a little bit of extra money. You're not sure what to do. So you just order Uber Eats and you don't care that it's a $4.99 delivery charge. You're just like, whatever, I got extra money, I'll spend it, right? And that's how those teams continue to be terrible for years to come. But I mean, again, I still believe that if there is a part of him, if he wants to win, he can do that in Toronto. But I just don't, I feel like that relationship is just so broken from just everything that he's had to deal with. But again, it's not only him, man. And listen, I'm not crying. I'm not crying for the Leafs, right? But I just don't think it's all on him. And then if he leaves, well, Leafs Nation can go out and scapegoat, Willie Nylander, or maybe one day they'll turn on, their boy Austin.
And the other thing too, and we keep talking about the media scrutiny in Toronto, you can't undervalue the fact that that might be one of his things. Like, I want to go somewhere, San Jose or Utah, or, if you want to talk about contending teams like Carolina, where like, I don't have to deal with that fishbowl. And like, some people be like, oh, he just can't handle it. No, maybe sometimes when you've been in an extreme version of something like that, the one thing you want is to go polar opposite. I want to go. That happened to Tyler Seguin. His career turned out just fine. Like, yeah, maybe he's still waiting for that ring and his name on the cup in Dallas to get his name on the cup at least. But he didn't want to play in that kind of scrutiny in Boston because Boston's one of the few U.S. cities where it is similar to a Canadian market in terms of the attention on a hockey team. He didn't want to deal with that. And there's nothing wrong. It doesn't mean he's not tough. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to be bothered. And you know what? If you're good enough to play a professional sport at that level, you can make that decision. And it's worked out just fine for him. Like I said, he hasn't won in Dallas yet. Maybe this is the year he wins in Dallas. But him and Jamie Benn for being the core two for that franchise for a long time has not been a bad move.
Yeah, like again, there are good representations of smaller market teams, I guess you want to call them that. I mean, I wouldn't consider Dallas, Carolina, and Sunrise these like big hockey markets, right? I would consider them maybe medium markets, right? I'll throw like, it's not like Edmonton's a big market per se in total of hockey, but in Canada, like it's magnified.
But it's hockey. It's the
right.
Oilers. They don't care. It's the Oilers and the Eskimos. It's all it is.
Yeah. Like, listen, I mean, look, they even Connor McDavid gets kind of pissy with the media, and he's the best player in the world. So, if I'm Mitch Marner, listen, pressure makes diamonds. Some players are, zirconium, whatever it is, that fake diamond. Maybe that's what he is, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's not everybody wants to go to work and have their whole life criticized. So it will be interesting to see where he ends up. I just hope it's not in a Habs uniform, man. I don't listen. Not today, Chief. Not let's spend our money somewhere else. I would like Montreal to go out and get a high price forward, kind of somebody to help scoring, but I don't need not Mitchie. Thanks, boy.
Edmonton Elks, excuse me. They've been a name change a couple of years. Don't stay on top of the CFL down here in my neck of the woods as much. If I was, it would be Saskatchewan. I love the green of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, so that would be my team if I had to pick one. Nonetheless, I'm very, very intrigued by that Minnesota 18-1. Because, I mean, they're a below the radar team, and I get it. You're basically signing up to have to deal with Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado, so that's not ideal. But, I mean, Kaprizov on one line, Marner on another.
It would be great. The problem is Minnesota has no money because they're still paying the cap the cap buyouts from Suter and
Doesn't that come off soon though? I thought they finally get relief from that soon.
I don't think it's this summer. I think it's next one. I think they're tied for a minute.
And yeah, the Rangers, like you pointed out earlier, like if the Rangers are like, hey, we're gonna really make one last, attempt with this group here,